So who do you have on your second team All NBA? In that case, let's just go straight into that topic since we already did our first one.
All right, we can go second team. I have Chris Paul number 1, Damian Lillard number 2, Paul George 3, LaMarcus Aldridge 4, and there was a bit of a toss-up between the 5th spot. I'm gonna go with Joakim Noah, Defensive Player of the Year, at the 5 spot. It was tough for me to pick Joakim Noah. It was either gonna be between him or DeAndre Jordan. Both of them had very similar stats. Joakim Noah with a slight edge in points and rebounds. But DeAndre with higher blocks per game, which is kind of weird because Joakim got the Defensive Player of the Year award. But Joakim also had a slightly higher field goal percentage at 48%, while DeAndre was at 67%. Or no. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at different stats. DeAndre actually had a higher field goal percentage.
DeAndre Jordan led the league.
Percentage.
DeAndre Jordan led the league in field goal percentage.
DeAndre.
So you have Joakim Noah as your center. I have him as my center as well. And the other players I have is point guard Chris Paul. First in assists and steals, no doubt about it. It's really a big toss-up between Steph Curry and Chris Paul as who should get first or second. Julian kind of went into why he thought Steph should be the first, and I agreed with most of what he said. But Chris Paul, close second, no doubt about it. My shooting guard, I have James Harden, 5th leading scorer in the NBA. Houston Rockets had a decent season. They were the 4th seed. He started in the All-Star game, and while this season was a disappointment, it was because of how good James Harden is for this team. He's a great fit, creates his own shot, goes hard to the basket, has one of the best Euro steps in the entire game, and really, really had a great season, and he's becoming one of the best players in the league. My small forward, Carmelo Anthony, he was the 2nd leading scorer in the game, averaging 27 points per game. And I know the Knicks had a rough season, but you can make the same argument for Kevin Love when Julien put it on his first team, why Carmelo Anthony should be on the second team for the small forward position. He was still very productive, averaged 8 rebounds a game as well, so 27 and 8. And considering what he was playing with, the Knicks almost made the playoffs in the terrible East.
Yeah, you can't give Carmelo the same ease that you give Kevin Love because Carmelo's.
But if you're talking about Kevin Love, who he was playing with, you see who Carmelo was playing with.
But Carmelo
had a terrible season.
Yes, but
Amari was injured. Tyson was injured. Raymond Felton is old. You have Iman Shumpert, who had a letdown season. But your second most productive player was probably Tim Hardaway Jr., who's a rookie.
Yes, but if you look at their team, they still had basically the same team they had last year, and they were a much better team last year.
But they were already old.
You can't.
But if you're still looking at Carmelo, he was still very productive. He was still very productive.
You can't say a year later, oh, they're old now. You cannot do that. You cannot give Carmelo the same ease. Carmelo has parts. They just didn't show up.
Exactly. And Carmelo's production was still there. Just because his team was bad doesn't mean Carmelo was bad. Carmelo was easily the best player on that team.
Of course, he was the best player.
He was still 2nd leading scorer in the NBA. How do you make up for that?
Because
he still averaged almost a double-double at 8 rebounds a game. You can't take anything away from what he did.
He was a good player, but I'm saying that how good that Carmelo is a superstar. Everyone knows that Carmelo's a superstar.
Which he deserves to be on the second. He should be in the top 10 players in the league this year.
There is no excuse why they should not have made the playoffs.
They had a bad season.
They had a terrible season.
They still finished.
But they should not have. They should in the East.
I understand.
In the East,
I take nothing away. And they might, depending on if they had made the playoffs, they could have beaten the Pacers if the Hawks took in the 7 games.
Do you have the Knicks record?
I do not have. I think it was like 37 and 45. They were 8 games below 500. I know that for sure. And I understand. I mean, considering what they were playing with, Carmelo. I mean, he was still productive, and so I understand. I have Carmelo in there. He's also the second best, one of the best scorers in the league. You can't guard him. I mean, besides Steph and KD, Carmelo is easily the 3rd best scorer on, and maybe even above Steph at some points, depending on where he is on the court. And then power forward Kevin Love.
But scoring isn't everything. You can score on your
8 rebounds a game?
Yes, but you have to get other players involved also, especially when you have the team that you do with players like Tyson and Amari, it's just inexcusable.
Tyson Chandler was injured for a lot. They had injured. They were injured a lot this season. They had a lot of injuries to their team, and so that's. I mean, and then Andrea Bargnani as well. You really expect him to show up. He had a terrible season as well. They had a terrible season except for Carmelo, who was
I expect them to make the playoffs and not 8th seed playoffs. I'm talking like people.
The team had a bad season, but Carmelo was fantastic. I mean, he could have done better, but I mean, considering what he was playing with, if JR could actually hit his shots next year, they actually have a good chance. Power forward, also J.R. Smith was the 6th man of the year last year, and he was not even close to what he was last year. So anyway, power forward, I have Kevin Love, obviously for the same reason that Julien had him in his first team. He had a fantastic season. I know the Timberwolves are awful, but they also would have made the playoffs if they were in the East. Again, I give you that. Double machine, great three-point shooter, just a terrific player. And then center, I also have Joakim Noah, defensive player of the year. You can't keep the defensive player out of this because he's just too productive on the defensive end and still was a productive player. And so I give Joakim Noah the center position.
Yep, I did also. The reason I gave Joakim over DeAndre, I thought both were very terrific players this year, especially DeAndre. DeAndre, from the season that he had last year, a good season, but this season definitely lot more improvement. The reason I gave Joakim Noah, though, is for the free throws. I feel like 43% from the free throw line, that was DeAndre. Just you can't put that on their second team if you're.
I have a question for you. So I remember you mentioning for your two guards, you had Chris Paul and Damian Lillard. How do you have Damian Lillard, who is only in his second year in the league? Granted, he led the team. Actually, I still give LaMarcus Aldridge the leader of the team right now because he just has more experience and because he's a big man and he's asked to do more as far as rebounding and scoring. So how do you have Damian Lillard, who's only in his second year in the league, in there instead of James Harden, who is the 5th leading scorer and had a terrific season and he led the Rockets to a much better record than the Portland Trail Blazers? And how do you? I don't see where you put.
Well, Damian is okay. Damian's younger than James Harden. Yes, I don't think that should matter at all. How young you are does not matter.
But James Harden is still
yes. James Harden.
James Harden was so much better than Damian this year.
Okay, but from the season that he had last year till now, he did not have the season that he had last year.
Because he was a rookie. It was his first year in the league.
No, I'm talking about James Harden.
Oh, James Harden.
James Harden. He was not as good as he was last year.
He was still an all-star.
Yeah.
He was still one of the best scorers in the league.
Yes.
He still led the Rockets to the playoffs.
So did Damian.
Not last year.
I'm talking this year. We're talking this year.
I understand, but you can't make the difference between last year and this year. James Harden is a 5th leading scorer in the league. He was a starter in the All-Star game.
Okay.
Well, I know it's because Kobe was injured, but it really should have been rightfully given to James Harden.
I just feel like Damian's a better leader. Damian led the team. Yes, Harden led his team too, but Damian.
I gave Damian Lillard another couple of years to really shine as one of the best players. And also, if you're talking about like your 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, Damian is not a 2.
You can play the 2.
But he's not a 2. James Harden is a shooting guard.
There. You can still put him up there.
I just don't really see how that's. I just don't agree with that really.
They're both.
And who do you have as your small forward?
Paul George. You had him on your first team.
Okay.
I had him on my second team.
And then your 4th was LaMarcus Aldridge.
LaMarcus Aldridge, yes. Did you have LaMarcus Aldridge?
I did not have. I had Kevin Love in my second team.
Okay.
Because I had Paul George, LeBron, and KD, and Blake as my 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, can you talk a little bit more about why you picked LaMarcus Aldridge? That's why I'm also confused. How do you have 2 Portland Trailblazers who didn't even have one? Like they were the 5th best. They had the 5th best record in the West, and how do you have 2 of them? Like if you were to have 2 players in the second team, that means you're saying that they have 2 of the top 10 best players in the league. And how do you get 2 of the top 10 best players in the league, and you only have the 5th best record in the West?
Well, this is second team.
But it's
This
still
is not first team.
Yeah, but the first team has 5 players. The second team has 5 players. And so you're saying that LaMarcus Aldridge and Damian Lillard were 2 of the top 10.
2 of the top 10 best
You think
players.
you think they were 2 of the top
Yes.
10 players?
Yes.
I don't.
Definitely.
I don't agree with that.
Who would you put in front of them? Who would you leave off?
I don't have either of them in my top.
Well,
10.
you have James Harden. And
I have Chris
what
Paul.
What other person? would you
Carmelo. You're gonna say Carmelo is? You think Damian or LaMarcus is better than Carmelo?
have? I have to go with the record.
You have to go with
You
the
have to
record.
win to be put on.
If you're going with the
list.
record, then why is Kevin Love first team?
Because Kevin Love is in the West, which is so much harder than
if
the
he was
East.
that good, then
And
he should
he
be able
would
to
have made
propel
the
that
playoff.
team.
He would have made the playoffs in the East. You have to understand that Carmelo wouldn't have made the playoffs at all. That's really bad.
So you're saying you're taking? I'm just talking about Damian and LaMarcus. You're saying you're gonna put them as the top 2 of the top 10 best players over Carmelo. You don't think Carmelo is a top 10 player?
Not this year. You have to win to be a top 10 player.
He's won in the past.
Yeah, but he won what?
He's made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right now, the Portland Trailblazers.
He hasn't won, Carmelo hasn't won anything. Let's be clear about that. He hasn't won anything.
Neither have the Portland Trailblazers.
Yes, they're a young team. Carmelo's been in the league for how many years?
They came in 2003, so he's been in the league for 11 years.
I don't see Carmelo hasn't won a championship yet, and I don't see him winning a championship anywhere.
Neither are Stephen
near
Curry,
future.
Paul George, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, Kevin Love, Chris Paul, James Harden, Carmelo, Kevin Love. I mean,
All right,
there's
but
the
you
only person
said-
on here that you have that's won a championship is LeBron.
You said Carmelo has won. That's what you said.
He's been in the playoffs
Yeah,
more times
that's
than
not
LaMarcus
winning,
Aldridge
though.
has been. The Portland Trailblazers are one of the worst teams in the league.
This is for this year, though.
I agree, but you can't talk about you have to win right now.
Well, you do have to win right now.
But you're gonna tell me that Carmelo Anthony is not the top. It's not a top 10 best player in the league right now.
He is, but the way that he played this year, I can't put him on this list.
So he was, but he wasn't. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that he is a top 10 player.
Then why isn't he in your set?
Because he didn't play like a top 10 player this year. That's what I'm saying.
You can't be in the top 10 and not.
He is a top 10 player,
Then
but
what?
he didn't perform like a top 10 player this
See, that's
year.
a contradiction.
No, it's not. You can have a great year. You could be Kobe Bryant, a top 10 player, and not play. That's basically Carmelo didn't play. He scored, he did, but he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything with it. All those stats that he had, they don't matter at all because he didn't make the playoffs.
You could say the same exact thing for Kevin Love, though.
But I'm giving. I said I was giving Kevin Love a break because he's in the West. That's what I'm saying.
All right, whatever.
All right.